Hello, my friends. Today is a big day. It is the beginning of the 24th special military operation against Ukraine. As you know, Putin authorized a special military operation on 24 February 2022. If you take 504 days, that's where we are now, and you divide it by 21, it's supposed to be a 3-week special military operation. We are on the beginning of the 24th special military operation in Ukraine. And Putin is not happy today. Now, I know some of the news will say that Zelensky's upset, and he was upset at the NATO conference, but if you're Putin, you're particularly going to be unhappy, and I'll show you why. So first, before the NATO conference, what Russia was doing was they have this habit of being like a petulant child just before a big conference, a NATO conference, a EU conference, a Ramstein meeting, whatever. They will attack major cities with missile barrages or drones. So Russia launched attacks against Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, the Black Sea port of Odessa, and the southern region of Kherson on Tuesday before the start of a NATO summit in Lithuania. They do this so regularly you could set your clocks by it. In fact, if you wanted to draw out missiles and drones, all you have to do is have one of these big summits and just prepare for, which major city do you think they'll hit, and you would sucker them in by doing that because they can't help themselves. The Air Force said 26 out of 28 kamikaze Iranian-made Shahed drones launched by Russia overnight had been shot down. What's interesting about that is that this is happening fewer and farther between, which means that my mind, and I could be wrong, but it seems like they're trying to preserve them rather than, remember back in like February or so, somewhere around there, February, March, they were just like, it was pummeling daily, right? It's not like that anymore. They don't have the supplies. Okay, let's talk about what happened at the NATO meeting. So the NATO summit updates, no timeline set for Ukraine membership. The big headline was Zelensky's upset about that. Zelensky, I love Zelensky. He's a great guy, but he's wrong about this, right? So I wrote this book, I Need Ammunition, Not a Ride, and I sang Zelensky's praises every place where he was praiseworthy, right? And there was a lot of them, but he's wrong. So what happens if you have a timeline? If you have a timeline, very bad things can happen, right? So either, let's say, or if you brought him into membership right now, what would happen? So NATO is bound to defend all of NATO's territory, and if Russia's still there, that becomes World War III. The other NATO members aren't really interested in trying to kick off World War III. They're trying to prevent it. So this is not necessarily the best plan to have a timeline, because if Putin was crazy enough and he said, here's a 2-year timeline, here's a 1-year timeline, and he was crazy enough to actually do that, that would throw us in, kind of against our will, into World War III. But I get it. If I was Zelensky, I'd probably feel the same way. I'd feel like, look, we're doing everything. What they should have done is not talk about timelines, but talk about more ways that we can support you. How can our individual nations support you, and have every nation walking away with homework, a to-do list of things that they were going to do to support them militarily or with humanitarian aid or whatever. Okay, I want to show you something else. That NATO symbol in the background is really interesting to me. Do you see it? Okay, and to the untrained eye, if you're Lithuanian, you know exactly what you're looking at. But to the untrained eye, you're going to see this thing in the background. It looks like some kind of papier-mâché guy on a horse. Well, what you're actually looking at is the Vetus. The Vetus is the symbol of Lithuania, and it's the white knight driving the invader out of the land. Now, it hasn't worked out well since like the 15th, 14th century, something along those lines, but it's an awesome symbol. I have one in my office just above my door at work. Okay, so let me stop digressing and talk about something useful. So the next big item here is that it looks like Sweden is going to be in. Unpacking the NATO-Turkey deal. Here is the president of Sweden talking to Erdogan, and so Sweden is going to be in. Erdogan's removing his blockage. Now, what does that mean? What does the map of NATO look like with Finland and Sweden in it? And here's why I'm saying Putin is having a bad day. Okay, this is the map with, so if you, here you see in yellow Ukraine, and arguably Putin said, we're going to war because we don't want this large landmass to go to NATO. Well, you have this large landmass that's Finland that already went to NATO, this large landmass that is Sweden that's about to go into NATO. Now put yourself in Putin's shoes. I know that's a very weird thing to say, but put yourself in Putin's shoes for just a moment. Okay, this is your major port to Europe. This is your only other major port, and we'll talk about this in just a moment. So if you're trying to be an empire and your major port is now surrounded by pretty well sworn enemies, or a bloc united, created for the purpose of being a bloc against you, or actually against your predecessor, the Soviet Union, you might have some problems, right? This is going to be a very bad day when this, because you're surrounded by enemies. Now, Russia has this weird, and somebody, one of my commenters asked about this, because I was talking about how they have this like racist, like I'm better than you, we're better than everybody else kind of thing. And they said, well, but you also said that they feel embattled. Yes, it's a weird, almost schizophrenic kind of, we're the best, but we're also embattled on all sides. Well, you have more proof to show right now that you are embattled on at least the Western Front. And they have this kind of mentality like we're the best, but we have all these enemies around us who just, like maybe somebody who's paranoid that you just want to take all our stuff or something, like everybody wants to come take everything that I have because we're so awesome. It's kind of like that, but now you have more evidence to prove it. Okay, now let's move on. So we know that there is no exit out of here that's not through very unfriendly territory. Now Crimea is also a warm water port from Russia through less than hostile territory out here to get wherever they're trying to go. So how much harder, if you've just lost this, put yourself in Putin's shoes, do you feel like you have to fight to hold on to this one? Right? Like that is what the Russian mindset is going to be going to next. So from the Russian perspective, they're in a world of hurt if they lose Crimea after losing Finland and Sweden as well. Now the fascinating thing is that they didn't have to lose Finland and Sweden. They really didn't. But what happened when Putin came to power and fought with Chechnya? The world yawned. And then what happened when Putin went into Georgia in 2008? The world yawned again. And then what happened in 2014? Hey, you shouldn't do this. This is bad. There was a Maidan uprising, but the world didn't do anything. And so Putin keeps getting the message that it's okay. But now they've wised up. And so now the map of NATO has changed. Now it reminds me of, I know this is a very strange thing, but it reminds me of the animal square dance. Do you know what the Animal Square Dance is? And so the Animal Square Dance is a song by a very weird comedian. His name is Emo Phillips. And Emo Phillips, well, I just have to show him to you. Like he is as weird as he looks. And he sings a song called the Animal Square Dance about how the animals are all getting together. I'm going to play a little clip for you, and then I'll explain why I did. So just listen.
Oh, the lion and the lamb will soon get down, and then they be doing the animal square dance. Okay, so the animals are all going to get together. No one's going to eat each other. They're just going to be happy and play nice. So the cobra and the mongoose would take off their shoes and congoos. They'd be doing the animal square dance, get down. And that sounds great, but it doesn't actually work. And then a few lines into the song, he sings this. And this, I think, is a metaphor for what you're actually seeing with Russia. And the lion kills an elk, and the tiger kills a gazelle, and the tiger kills another gazelle, and the tiger kills another gazelle, and the gazelle's wise up and kill the tiger. Yeah, that's right. So if you didn't hear him, the tiger kills a gazelle, and the tiger kills another gazelle, and the tiger kills another gazelle, and then the gazelles wise up and kill the tiger. And see, that's what's taking place right now. The gazelles have wised up, and look, like, you know,
There are people that say, well, the West, they were just looking for their opportunity to do this to Russia. There probably were a couple people here and there, but for the most part, we're like, Russia, what are they doing? I'm not really paying attention. But when Russia invaded the border of Ukraine, we all took notice. At least this time, we all took notice because the tiger killed a gazelle, and then the tiger killed a gazelle, and then the tiger killed his gazelle. And now, you know what? The tiger can't be permitted to keep doing this. All right, so that's what's going on today on the beginning of the 24th 3-week special military operation in Ukraine. Thanks for your time, the likes, the coffees. I appreciate it. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.